crowdfunding and more. So we're super excited to have everybody here today joining us. I'm going to go ahead and introduce everyone and then give them a minute to say hello. Matthew Limones from Soundexchange is here if you want to say hi.
Hi, everybody. It's so great to be here. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you to the organizers at Music Expo at home. It's really great to be back. I'm based in Miami, representing Soundexchange over here, and it's great to be here again.
I love it. You got some of that Miami. Mark Hill from Create Music Group is here. Mark, if you want to say hi.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I appreciate you guys for having me, and I'm excited to talk about how you can make more money from music. I'm based in LA. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Ashley Alexander from Big Deal Music Group is here today.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Ashley from Big Deal Music Group. I am a publisher over there. I'm based in LA and really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And then we have Oscar Castellano. I know I'm going to totally mess that name up, but Oscar, say hello to everybody, please.
Not at all. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Loic, and thanks, Music Expo, for the invitation. And, glad to be part of this panel, just to think about, a bit, how can we continue making more money in the music industry for everyone. And I have a small firm, as you may see, DYT Consulting, and what we do is consulting on the music industry.
That's great. Thank you all for joining us today. It's super timely that we're here with everybody being in quarantine and artists and creators that have lost revenue from tours being canceled to live music festivals being postponed and all the live events that really help kind of keep the music industry and the artists and creators running. Outside of that, there's a ton of ways to generate revenue just from the outside of the traditional touring and merch type of thing. So I want to go ahead and kick it off and just start talking about some of the digital royalty aspects of that, because I think that's super timely and important right now for creators. So I'm going to turn it over to Matthew Limones from Soundexchange. And can you just share a little bit about Soundexchange? What rights do you have when you sign up to Soundexchange, and how Soundexchange kind of helps artists generate revenue?
Sure, absolutely. Glad to answer that, Michelle. So Soundexchange, I mean, I'm sure most of you have heard about it, but a lot of you might not know kind of like the specifics of it. And it's basic, but at the same time, it is a bit complex. But to start kind of like with the basics, Soundexchange is the collective based in Washington, D.C. to collect royalties for artists and for labels. We're designated by the Copyright Office to do this. In the United States, just as, there are other performance rights societies, but there is a huge difference because we're on the label side. So I know that, many of you might know this, but just to review, there are two basic copyrights that our industry sort of stems from, that you can make money from. And so you have the underlying composition and you have the recording, the sound recording. So both of those two those two copyrights are very different, but Soundexchange is on the label side. So what we do is we protect the rights of the label and the performer. So if you are a label, if you are a performer, but you're also somehow a songwriter, you're going to be both, on the ASCAP and BMI and CSAC side, but then also on the Soundexchange side as well. We license a ton of service providers because this is a public performance royalty for labels and for artists, and we license over 150,000 of these non-interactive services.
Can you share a couple of examples of the DSPs that you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. So popular examples of these providers are ones like, let's say, Pandora, SiriusXM, iHeartRadio. They all function by internet, satellite, and cable radio. And you can actually pick the song. It's something like, you turn it on, it's a station, and the music just keeps going and it's flowing. And that's the type of service that we actually license. But you're making money off of that as an artist and as a label. And these service providers don't have to ask you for permission to use your content. So a lot of times people don't know that there's this revenue stream because technically per the law, per the copyright law, Soundexchange issues the statutory license to these service providers, and these service providers can use your content. They can use your music without going to you and asking for permission. And in turn, we collect the royalties that are generated from these service providers, and you have to come and you have to register with us to actually collect these royalties. That's kind of like the important part for artists and labels, is for them to realize that, yeah, we're collecting for them, but in order for you to be able to claim those royalties, you have to register with us.
That's great. So I know you mentioned that you work a lot with the labels, but independent artists and creators still have access to Soundexchange themselves and can sign up directly. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. Yeah. So, I mean, my specific focus, I work as part of the artist and label relations team at the company. So, you know, our focus is mainly to be out there and educate the music community. And mine, you know, a lot of my specific area is the Latin market. I'm reaching out to a lot of Latin artists that may have royalties that are waiting for them, but a lot of it is so proactive too, because, you know, a lot of it is identifying artists that, you know, are emerging and, you know, they're on their way to becoming very successful. And so we try to catch them right before they're too successful to get everything organized, but usually the ones that are organized become the most successful. So those are the guys that we're talking to or reaching out to, making sure that everything is registered and claimed correctly.
So this is super important, because if I'm an artist and creator, like you said, some of those DSPs like Spotify, iHeart, like they can take my song if I put it out and put it on a distribution platform and basically just play it and not have to pay me anything. So you guys are basically fighting on my behalf so that I can get a chunk of that pie in my pocket as the creator.
You know what, you're almost correct there, Michelle, except you said one thing that makes this a huge difference. So Spotify is licensed directly from the copyright owners. So if you're an independent artist, you're going to see your royalties through your distributor, both your rights owner royalties and your artist royalties from anything played on Spotify.
That's right, because there are exceptions. I forgot about that one.
Exactly. And that is really important to know. But the other guys like iHeartRadio, Music Choice, Sirius, those guys are licensed via the statutory license, which is what we issue, and we're able to you know, collect the royalties that they pay. So that money is sitting there waiting for you to come and claim and register. You know, anything that's out there that you release is, you know, it's for them to be able to play, and you got to come and claim the royalties on that.
That's awesome. Well, we're super pumped that Soundexchange is able to help us out and independent artists put some more money in our pocket, because, you know, outside of Spotify and some of those big ones, like everybody else, it's just open format and open for public domain for everybody else to just start playing our music. So super helpful.
That's it. That's it. We are there to protect your rights. And, you know, we have representation in LA, Nashville, New York. I'm in Miami, but we're headquartered in Washington, DC, because a lot of what we do is we advocate for performers and we protect their rights. It's a huge part of what we do.
That's awesome. So how would an artist or an independent artist or a beat maker or songwriter go and sign up for Soundexchange? And what resources do you guys provide to help artists?
Yeah, no. So, I mean, and this is so important now. I mean, right now we're going through this really, you know, strange time in the world where, you know, live performance is completely non-existent. As an artist, you're not able to make money as a performer, as a live performer, but your sound recordings are out there. So what you got to do is you got to actually come and claim that money directly with us by registering with us. And you go to soundexchange.com, and all you need to do is fill out it's about a 7-step process online. And you make those claims. And once your account is set up, it is really important that you keep up to date with whatever, you know, you're releasing. So if you come out with a record and you know it's out there, you got to get into your dashboard, which is very user-friendly. I've only heard great things about it from our community, the artists, the independent, they love it because it's so user-friendly. And this was just launched around last year when I was at the Music Expo in San Francisco, and I talked a little bit about this. But these resources are so important because these tools allow you to see exactly what's been released, what's out there, and how you can claim it. So you got the Submit Recordings tool, which is for you as a label or as an independent copyright owner. And you got the other one for you as an artist, and that's the search and claim tool. And those tools are very important because you go in there, pretty much populates the fields as if you were, you know, it's what we're traditionally called the label copy, but it's all the metadata. You know, metadata is a huge thing today. You know, sound recordings are file now. It's basically a line of information, artist name, artist track, the international standard recording code. So you got to fill that out via these tools to make sure that you're maximizing all these royalties, and all that's done online at our website.
That's awesome. And we dropped the Soundexchange website, I believe, in the chat box for anybody that's interested in checking that out and signing up. You touched a little bit about the difference between digital royalties and the publishing side of things. So I'm going to transition over to Ashley Alexander and just start kind of diving into a little bit about publishing. I want to note to everybody that is joining us today, I'm going to stop about halfway and then we'll take questions at the end. I don't think I said that in the beginning. So I see some questions coming in and we'll address those towards the end. Ashley, on the publishing side of things, how important is publishing in the digital world right now? And how can artists capitalize on publishing income?
I think like in the climate that we're in right now, it's definitely really important. To one of the things you mentioned earlier is that a lot of people aren't getting revenue from other streams that they normally would, like touring. And so right now, making sure that you have some publishing income and you're collecting on that publishing income if you have songs out in the world is really important, and that you're finding ways to exploit your songs. And when I say exploit, I mean, you know, finding different opportunities, whether it be film and TV opportunities, ad opportunities, brand opportunities. And so those are all some other ways that you can generate income on your songs.
Can you share a little bit, you mentioned TV syncs and brand partnerships and that type of way to generate income. Can you share a little bit about each of those and how artists can kind of position themselves to approach whether a film to have a song included or anything like that? Can you just share a little bit how artists can set themselves up in order to be able to do that?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the most important pieces of advice that I would give is making sure if you are in a position to be able to promote your music and give it to a music supervisor or to an ad company and you have those relationships, it's really, really important that you have all of your assets together, because that's the first step in really getting it to the right people and for those people to be able to pitch it either to producers of a production or an ad company. And so I would say for all of the creators out there to make sure, most importantly, that you have your songs registered. So if you're affiliated with a PRO like ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, it's important that if those songs are ready to be pitched out into the world, that they're registered. And when they are registered, it's important to make sure that all of that information is available to, say, a music supervisor. So you have all the co-writers, if there are multiple writers, you have your writer info as it's registered, your pub designee as it's registered, all available in the contact info when you provide it to your music supervisor that you're submitting to. And then you want to make sure you have your splits, all the necessary information, because in those worlds, placements go really quickly. And that information, if you're searching and searching, if a supervisor is searching for that, you might lose the opportunity. And so that's really putting your best foot forward. Also making sure that you have all the right files. So typically music supervisors want a master wave and a master instrumental. If you have acapellas, that's great too. But you want to make sure that you have all the assets ready to give to somebody who's in a position to place them. And that only just builds your relationship with those, industry professionals. So a music supervisor will remember you even if you're not published, if you have a relationship with that supervisor and you're submitting great songs and you're always giving them everything that they need in order to put those songs forward and give them their best opportunity, they're definitely going to remember you and come back for more when they have other briefs.
That's awesome. So as an independent artist, if you're not signed up with a publishing company, can you still pitch your songs to get placed in certain areas, and how would that work as well?
I think you can. I think obviously if you're published by a publisher, you have a wider team. So, you know, with our writers and artists, they have, you know, people like me who are their A&R pitching their songs to labels for other artists to record, but also we work really closely with our film and TV department. They're another extension of your community. So you're definitely in a good position because you have a wider team that has also built out their own individual relationships. But I think it's so valuable for independent artists or any artist in general, even if they're signed, as well as songwriters, to make sure that they're building those relationships as well, that they get to have that dialogue. So if you're signed, you should try and build that relationship with somebody who is on the production staff that is talking to your supervisor. But if you're able to build those relationships on your own, say you've heard of a publishing house and you want to submit your music, like it's important for you to reach out and let people know that you're there in a respectful way, and by submitting great music. And some of our writers, before we even published them, they had already established relationships with just direct companies like Apple, Samsung, Target, because they understood how to work with different ad companies. And if they gave them a bunch of revisions, they were ready to do them and eager and paid attention to their email and got back, you know, in a timely way. And so people remember that even if you're not signed, because you're submitting great work. And so as long as you're putting your best foot forward and really fostering those relationships and checking in a quick and really, you know, specific way, like, what are you working on these days? What briefs do you have? Do you have anything that is available to write on spec? Those types of, you know, relationships can be really fruitful when you're constantly putting forward good work and just being respectful and eager to learn and put your best foot forward.
That's great. How have things changed from a traditional standpoint of writers in the same room writing and generating revenue, like now with the kind of digital explosion of everything that's online? Can you share what that's like on the publishing side of things these days?
From like a session songwriter perspective, or?
Yeah, like, how are writers collaborating now with all the online digital tools, but also like, where are you guys seeing on the publishing side most of the revenue coming in from?
Well, I mean, I think radio still plays a really big role especially in our side of things as publishers. But yeah, I mean, there's from all the DSPs, obviously, it's a different thing for publishers than it is for master holders. So the labels are being paid on a different rate than the publishers. But for us, you know, it's still through film and TV ad stuff. Like, we have a very strong film and TV department that's always pushing our music and has great relationships within the community. And so for us, our writers, the writers I work with are writing for other artists every day. So they're, you know, that's their first stream of income, but then they're also, you know, pitching for film and TV opportunities as well. The great thing about our roster that we work with right now is they all come from an artist or band perspective. So they kind of have been there, done that, and really felt every aspect of the industry. So when they're going into the room with an artist, they're able to kind of build a different relationship because they have a perspective from that. So that really helps, you know, continuing being lucky enough to have cuts with different artists who are on the radio. And then on the film and TV side, because they're so creative and they've come from that artist's background, they, you know, they have this other outlet to try and write for briefs and write for song opportunities in films, and they really enjoy that. And a lot of them have built their own, as I mentioned before, relationships with different producers on films because they were able to dive deep into a character and go deep on the creative side. So we definitely see it from all different facets. Right now, obviously, you know, like, we want to make sure that we're finding all the best opportunities for the songs that we publish because we are in a very digital world now with quarantine.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about how the clearances work on the publishing side? And maybe are there benefits for independent artists who may not be signed to a publishing company, and that maybe music supervisors or film and TV actually gravitate towards to kind of bypass some of those clearances? Is that something you can talk on?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for independent artists, if they're writing the song solely themselves, then they're the direct line. So for music supervisors, that's really appealing because there's one person to find in order to place that song. When, you know, there's a bigger team, then there's more people to go through the clearance process of contacting. So yeah, as an independent artist, especially if you're the sole writer on your songs, or even if you're a duo, it's definitely a more direct relationship, and that is something to really capitalize on, is being able to feed those songs to a supervisor, and that supervisor knows that it's just going to be a one-stop shop. They're not going to have to, you know, find who the fourth writer is on this song and who's their team. And so I think when, you know, you have a bigger team, it just, you know, there's more cooks in the kitchen of who to find. But if you work with great publishers or great, you know, sync houses, those teams know exactly what they need to do to get the song, you know, cleared in time for a placement.
Awesome. And so if I am a bedroom producer or a singer-songwriter and I want to get out to start collaborating with other people, can you talk about the benefit of collaborating with other folks, and that maybe that could snowball into something more where they could generate additional revenue that way, and any resources where people can maybe start setting up a way to collaborate with other writers and creators?
Definitely. I mean, I think if you want to be creating music and you want to work in the industry, you have to be collaborating. It's the number one thing, because that just builds out your community. And it can be really isolating in any part of the industry, whether you work in New York or Miami or LA or Nashville, if you don't have a community. So that first step of really taking a leap and starting to co-write with people is so important, not only from just the industry side, from the friendship side. A lot of our writers were friends first. A lot of them grew up together, which is really interesting. It's been fun to see that certain writers have a long-standing history of just playing in their, you know, basement or garage when they were kids, and then they went to music school, or, you know, someone moved to Nashville and became friends with another songwriter, and that songwriter introduced them to somebody else. And it's amazing how over the course of your career, you'll really, you know, as you look back, you'll see how all those connections really snowballed. And they mostly snowball from really genuine, authentic relationships that you have with people. You want to make sure that you find people that you have fun writing with, because every day, you know, on the songwriter side, every day you're writing a new song with new people, some of which that you may get to work with all the time, and some may be, you know, like a blind date. We call it blind dating when you're getting to expand your community. But it's really key to start doing collaborations. Now, since everybody is online and in this climate, it kind of changes the playing field now, because everybody's in the same boat. And this is kind of a great time to reach out to people and say, hey, you want to do a Zoom session? And if you're a fan of somebody that you see on, you know, SoundCloud, tell them, hey, I'm really into your music. This is, you know, some of the stuff that I've been working on. Would you ever be down to write one day? And that can lead to, you know, building relationships on the live show front. Like if you're friends with other bands, then you can open for them. And the ability to grow with each other is really a valuable thing that I think a lot of people may forget. You know, you're coming up, it's really that much more fruitful when you guys are doing it together, when you get to all come up together and help each other along the way, and look back at different times and say, oh, remember that, or remember that one song when we did this with the production, maybe we could pull this in here. And you shouldn't be afraid to reach out. I know it's a really nerve-wracking thing, but that's the leap. That's the leap you're taking that leap every day in the industry anyway, working in music. So you got to just put yourself out there, and some rights will be great and some won't, and those ones you just move on. You write a new song with somebody different, and as you go and as you hone your own skills, you'll feel different magic with different writers, and that really does help open doors along the way. And that's how we've met some of our songwriters that we publish through other writers we publish, and they say, gosh, you got to hear this person, I just wrote with them the other day, or I just met them at this party and they have such great music, you got to check it out. And you just never know when it's going to get passed along, but most times it's getting passed along from the people you're creating with.
Awesome. And so earlier, Matthew had mentioned generating revenue from DSPs and online places. Can you share a little bit from the publishing side, the differences between those type of digital royalties and the royalties that artists and publishing companies are getting from PROs like ASCAP and BMI?
Yeah, from ASCAP and BMI, I mean, we have, obviously that's one of our closest relationships with making sure that our writers are collecting. So that is a very important one. Obviously, we encourage our writers and artists to sign up with Soundexchange. That's a big one for us, in making sure that our writers know what they can get on their writer side and on their copyright side. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a variety of different places. I don't work on the royalty side, so I don't see all of the different outcomes. But yeah, I mean, we're looking to collect from every DSP, from every radio outlet and YouTube, every video outlet, because those are half of our copyrights. So we want to make sure that we're collecting and making sure that all of our writers have the most income coming in.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to transition over to Mark Hill, and even Oscar can probably jump in on some of these next questions regarding revenue from monetizing videos on YouTube to SoundCloud to monetizing revenue coming in from streaming. So maybe Mark, I think you guys deal with a lot of video content at Create Music Group. Can you share what your process is like with your clients and how you're generating revenue and monetizing your YouTube channels and streaming?
Yeah, 100%. So, with Create and what we do on YouTube, there's, a few important things to understand about what happens on YouTube and how we interact with the platform. The first thing is that creators can upload videos and make money. So let's say there's a lot of artists in the chat. Someone could upload your song, and if you're not doing the correct things, they can personally make money. So that's what started Create, was us enforcing basically people's copyright on free music, where, okay, you're making original music, but you're not distributing that, or for whatever reason, you're not enforcing your rights on YouTube. So we would basically track that down, pick up the money from third-party uploads. So some random person uploads your song, or videographer, whatever, grab the money, pay it out to you on a monthly basis. And that's extended into, we work really closely with not only tracking down revenue on other people's channels, but also maximizing the revenue on the actual artist channel itself, both through, maximizing the video and little tricks we know how to maximize the engagement, but then also, as we're scaling up, we're trying to do a lot of cool things directly with advertisers and just scale the whole model of a YouTube channel. If you look at YouTube today, you see a lot of big creators and celebrities, from a J-Lo to a Will Smith, and there's a, YouTube is a huge platform, and people are starting to appreciate it more. So we're trying to do big, treat a lot of our big YouTube channels like big TV channels in a sense. And then beyond that, it's, SoundCloud, you can make money from SoundCloud, AudioMac we have a relationship with. So all those free platforms we have tried to maximize, but, for me, so it's make money from all the free platforms, all the music you made. And then, you have to start being organized going forward and distributing and maximizing Spotify and Apple Music, especially for the music I deal with, because, you're just making so much money, more money per play on a Spotify or Apple than you are on a YouTube. So at some point, you're not maximizing your own earning potential by not distributing just to where your audience is worth more. You know, so that's kind of where we like to start, is just the back.
Probably if I could, you know, jump on that point that Mark just mentioned exactly, what we recommend as well to customers and to artists, you know, in the company that I have is precisely that, you know, extend your reach into all the digital platforms, right? So it's not only about, you know, Spotify, it's not only about, you know, Apple Music, you know, you have Deezer, you know, you have, you know, Amazon, you have all the big names, but also you have big names and you have free ones, free platforms such as, you know, SoundCloud, and the importance of YouTube for sure. So as he mentioned, you know, have this number in mind, right? So about, you know, 1 million streams on digital platforms pay something around, you know, anything from $2,500 to $4,000, more or less, roughly, right? 1 million streams. So, and again, you know, there are platforms that pay way less and platforms that pay quite a lot. So while you diversify, you know, your platform reach, you also diversify potentially your consumer base or your fan base, because, you know, we have to understand that, you know, not every platform have the same type of consumer, and hence, you know, extending that reach further will give us, you know, more ability to be heard by, you know, a different population, right? And once we get into the specificities or of the different streaming platforms, one of the critical things that, you know, we like to encourage everyone is to have a good playlisting strategy. And, you know, Mark can definitely tell you something, you know, probably about, you know, YouTube, that he's experienced there. I can certainly tell you about, you know, the experience in platforms such as, you know, Deezer, or, you know, the paid, you know, Dsps such as Spotify and others, that you have to have, you know, a good pitching process to go into the editorial playlist where it is kind of official. So it is not anymore about, you know, the Payola thing that, you know, the editor, and, you know, you just, you know, try to push him, you know, with emails, and then he responds and you make, you know, money out of there because he's put you into a big playlist. That doesn't work, and that is not, you know, the approach that we like to take. We like to think on this as, you know, go with the same mentality as you have with a live audience, with a live, you know, concert. You don't start, you know, by trying to get into the American Airlines Arena in Miami. You probably start by, you know, a small venue with, you know, 100 guys, you know, coming in, you know, and seeing you, probably 25 at the beginning. And then from there you go start, you know, moving, you know, up and up, you know, into the scale. Exactly happens the same, you know, with playlisting. So think about, if you want to make money from streaming, start by small playlists. Start by a small playlist that are not as well editorial playlists. So start by getting into third-party playlists. So guys such as, you know, Matthew or Ashley may have probably a super good playlist that, you know, can have, you know, thousands of listeners in there. And those, you know, will add up, you know, as I get into those, you know, third parties, will add up to some nice amounts. When the algorithms start picking in, they will understand that a lot is happening, you know, from different places, and, you know, editorials, you know, will take a look at that. And that is where you get good possession on that, on the big numbers. So, but again, you know, you just have to build your career step by step in streaming. That's a clear fact.
How often, because I feel like algorithms change quite a bit, is it to an artist's benefit to release music on a consistent basis then, in order to get seen by a Spotify or somebody to be positioned on a playlist? Is that the best strategy, or are there other strategies for that?
If I may, and again, please, anyone, you know, join in, you know, certainly. I would say you have to be, you know, relevant in this world. You know, as Ashley mentioned before, you're not there, you know, in the physical world anymore. This is just about digital. So when you release something on a digital space, you know, you have to more or less understand that you have 4 to 6 weeks on a single to have, you know, a good, you know, lifespan, and see, you know, your streams picking up, and then, you know, see a plateau, and then, you know, go down. If you don't release songs, you know, regularly, people will just forget about you, because people do get into playlists, and many times they don't know who the hell, you know, they're listening to. When they, you know, pick up, you know, a music on a smart speaker, and you just, you know, ask for certain music on a smart speaker, you know, maybe they will just sing it. Maybe they will just say, hey, play me this song that, you know, tells me this. And, you know, again, those things may mean that they don't know exactly the artist. So you have to be relevant. So you have to be there in the face of the consumers. So definitely release music constantly. that's something that you always have to keep in mind as an artist.
Bouncing back to Mark on the YouTube revenue, what are some of those tips and tricks that people, whether it's like, I really need to have a really nice banner header, or I need to go into the YouTube channel and sign up for advertising to start collecting money. What are those small things that independent artists can do if they don't have a label right now in YouTube where they can start generating more traffic and more money?
100%. I would say on the videos themselves, you know, pay attention to the stuff like the tags, the thumbnail. The thumbnail matters a lot, like you said, the banners. I mean, you have to, I'll say big picture when you're trying to become an artist, you have to have people buy into what you're doing. So there's an element of professionalism that you have to come across with, and also just the way YouTube works. Think about when you're on YouTube, you see a bunch of pictures on your page. The thing that jumps out is if the picture doesn't jump out, you're not clicking it. So it's like you just have to kind of think about the technical aspect, and then also just your overall image. And then, like you said, the technical aspect goes into also like if you're doing it yourself, if you're eligible, turning on your AdSense. Same thing. I've been seeing in the chat, people are asking about their self-service distributors. You know, you have to go through your self-service distributor and see if they're doing Content ID or not. A lot of times, you know, different things are different options. So you just kind of have to do your due diligence. And even that is like, you're gonna have to handle certain things separately, especially as an independent artist. A lot of the things that a publisher does or a label does to go to different places and collect the money, you have to do on your own. So, you know, if you're being your own publisher, you gotta go to BMI, you gotta go to Verify, you gotta go to everyone on your own that you're publisher from. Same thing as on the master side, you know, you gotta go to YouTube, you gotta go make sure your distributor is collecting everything it's supposed to. If you have a SoundCloud presence, you can do that yourself, or you can go to a bunch of companies that do that. You know, start doing your research and due diligence, I think.
So YouTube, I think everybody, when they think about YouTube, they're like, I'm going to release a video, or there's a bunch of TV shows I can watch on YouTube and they're up there. But there is a playlisting element to YouTube, is there not? So how does that work? And how would you on YouTube get onto other people's YouTube's playlist?
Yeah. It's two-pronged, like Oscar was talking about, where you have editorials and then you have user-generated. And so, you know, we have great relationships with both. You know, we have a great relationship with YouTube itself to pick up content. You know, what I always say is the great thing about YouTube is YouTube playlists are not so much like, you know, on Spotify, there might be these big brand name playlists that we all know and love. But on YouTube, it's not necessarily the same. But the cool thing about them is that they're really impactful in that they drive traffic beyond just the playlist itself, because YouTube has a lot of like algorithmic playlists and stuff like that that are affected by them placing content. And then on the other side, you know, using YouTube playlisting is a tool that we really use a lot to build artists up, you know, get a return. It leads to more algorithmic playlisting. And for us in our world, you know, from my world in hip hop, a lot of artists is hot on YouTube first. So when it comes to the overall story, you know, it's something that we use a lot.
That's really cool. Now with the digital world being so relevant because of the quarantine, what strategies are you guys using to continue to generate more revenue that are outside of the box? Would it be like digital meet and greets between artists and fans? Is it like track releases every other day? Is it virtual concerts? Like those type of elements I feel like are getting a boost now because everybody's in quarantine. Are those in fact helpful, and should artists be doing them, and do they help generate revenue, and in what ways?
100%. I mean, in my opinion, like, you know, of course, releasing content these days, there's so many ways you can make money for actual content, not only from, like we're talking about the music itself, but, you know, you're doing things, you're putting it on YouTube, you're making money. But I think, you know, a lot of the things that you're even talking about go towards, you know, things that we've talking about this whole time in terms of maintaining relevancy. And like Oscar was talking about being a relevant artist. Like if you're doing, you know, some of these things are not to make money. You're not doing a live concert on your Instagram Live to make money directly. You're doing it to maintain relevancy. You can drop music, so you can drop your merch, so you can, you know, drop your vlog and make money, or, you know, do different creative things. I mean, features. I mean, I think people are selling creative things. I mean, I've seen artists, smaller artists sell, you know, clothes, or just like, I think people are, you know, independent artists are getting creative with their, I mean, I've even seen, you know, bigger rappers sell like drops and effect to other rappers and little promotions. So I think people are getting creative with their platforms, but you also have to get creative with being relevant. Like Oscar was talking about these times, like, okay, what are you doing that's cool that then someone that doesn't know who you are cares about, so that someone like me or Oscar can tell Spotify, hey, I have this artist that's doing this over here, and it's more than just your music. It's, oh, he's live stream, he's, you know, whatever, you know, she's setting up this video game content, you know, I don't know. But I think, yeah, maintaining, being active in this time is really important as an artist, just to maintain your relevancy and story, because people are consuming content, like you said, in a different way. So it's like, if you can remain active, I think you can actually gain a lot in your fan base.
To add on that,
Yeah.
so Michelle, sorry to interrupt you. Maybe to add on to Mark's, I would say definitely, you know, live stream right now is something that should be a must, you know, for any artist. Again, you know, regular, you know, audio streaming techniques, as mentioned before, getting into playlisting, etc., getting into YouTube, fantastic, check. You know, you have then the royalties on the publishing side. Absolutely, you have to know, you know, what is coming from there for a source of revenue. Live streaming is an artist marketing tool right now, and I put the marketing name in there because it helps quite a lot, you know, drive a lot of things that is going to come, you know, in the overall, you know, revenue source scene, right? So it may give you money directly there. It is not easy, don't get me wrong. So live stream, you know, and getting money from live stream is not easy. It's hard work. So I don't want anyone to think that, you know, I just, you know, put a Facebook Live, you know, concert, you know, for 20 minutes and I'm going to make, you know, $2,000. That's not going to happen. Okay. So, but, you know, you have definitely to build your audience there. As Mark was saying, you know, you have to, and I come back as well to getting into as broader reach as you can. Facebook Live, Instagram Live, you know, YouTube Live, you know, you have one very important one, you know, out of the box, I would say, as you were asking before, that is Twitch. So Twitch, you know, has in the past, you know, year has multiplied by 400%, you know, their consumption. Right now, it's about 17 million hours in a month, you know, in terms of music, you know, within Twitch. That is a gaming community, by the way. But it has a lot of positive attributes. It's growing much more than it's growing, by the way, Twitch overall, despite remaining 1.2%, 1.5% of the total, you know, viewable hours. But because Twitch is a gaming community, that sense of community is super good as well for artists, because, you know, they are, those consumers are there to explore as well. I'm very used to exploring, I'm very used to get into that community sense that Ashley was mentioning before. So you build a community by getting into Twitch too. So one of the things I would definitely recommend, you know, artists right now, as we were saying, is, you know, yes, you go into Facebook, you know, Instagram and YouTube Lives, but also please start getting into Twitch. You know, slowly but surely, you will realize that that will come, you know, to something, you know, quite tangible in the future. And you will have, by the way, opportunities to monetize, you know, your content is in there as well by having, you know, donations and by having, you know, subscriptions to within Twitch. You know?
Oscar, can you also touch on crowdfunding? And I mean, I think artists, like the biggest one everybody thinks of is Kickstarter. Like, how can artists, like, it's possible for them to fund their projects these days, but how should artists approach that? How can they set themselves up for success with crowdfunding to generate that revenue for their next project?
Yeah, so good question. In terms of crowdfunding, we always have to understand that first, and you just mentioned, and let's be very clear, right? Because I mean, you can go online and you can, you know, check on these facts. Right now, crowdfunding, you know, is a big hit, you know, in the base. Meaning, you know, as an example, you know, Kickstarter is public, that, you know, has been, you know, into a rough, you know, situation, you know, in the last months. But anyway, still remains in a good platform, you know, to get your projects, you know, being funded, with a very good difference towards, you know, finding an investor that is, you know, within crowdfunding, you know, you control as the artist, you know, your destiny. If you have an external, you know, investor, most likely they're going to ask you for a percentage of your royalties in the future. In the case of these, you know, crowdfunding platforms, and again, you can find, you know, Patreon, you can find, you know, Kickstarter or others, you know, yours is the art, yours is the success, yours is the future. You control that. So what you do in crowdfunding, first of all, as with any small company willing to take or needing money from third parties, you just have to have a good product. So you have to have, good music, and you have to communicate properly to the audience. And with that, comes a lot of planning as well into what you try to do within crowdfunding, right? So it is about, what do we want to do, with our project? Are we going to, try to make an album, but it probably is not, the best, thing to do these days, but are you willing to do a sort of cumulative singles, or do we want to make, a certain, thing for the future, in 6 months time or 1 year time, a small tour? It depends on what you try to do. You will, set yourself, on a project that goes into different, ways. And as well, you will probably, do some competitive research into what other bands are doing similar to what you do, because you have to stand out from the others so that, you get the money from backers. And also, you have to start planning onto the rewards program. So how do you incentivize, backers, to give you $5, $10, $30? Average backing, within Kickstarter is about, $25 to $30 in music projects. But within there, you will fund, you will establish your funding goal. You will put up, your video page. You will communicate directly. And once your project is live, you will have a continuous update, and it goes once more into the same thing that we've always said: content, 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 content. You're going to be not working probably 8 hours, on the street going to your different live concerts. You're going to be working 8 hours within, your side, within digital side, in the computer, trying to create content. And that is what will help, backers to know you and probably, give you money to your project, right?
That's excellent. And I think it's important to note too, that takes a long time to get that set up on the front end. So in addition to, because I think everybody gets done with the project, they're like, I need funding, I'm going to go start a Kickstarter. But if you allow yourself, I don't know, a month or two to figure out what that content is ahead of time and have that lead time way before you launch your crowdfunding campaign, that definitely will help you out immensely.
Definitely, Michelle. It's about planning. You just nailed it. It's about planning. Do that thing in advance. Know as well what your potential, what we call it, short backers are going to be. So your friends and family for sure, but you will have, third parties that, in the music industry that you can reach to, and you're sure that they're going to give you, $20, $30, $100 maybe. Because when you count on those, what you will do and what we recommend to our customers is the very first day that we launch the Kickstarter campaign, we reach to those guys so that, they back the very first day. People is try to get used and get, associated with success. So the more I see that the project is getting funded from the beginning, the easier it is for me, to get, new projects coming in. New backers coming in. So those are the things, and it goes back to the planning that you just mentioned.
For sure. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes for questions. There's one specific that people keep bringing up here. I think, Matthew, this will probably be directed to you, because we were talking about Spotify being a separate entity outside of Soundexchange for collecting digital royalties. And people are asking, if you distribute your music through DistroKid or CD Baby or a distributor, do you need to sign up for Soundexchange or Spotify or other places in order to generate revenue, or are those distributors doing it on your behalf?
Okay, yeah, so that is a very good question. So the answer to that is no. If you are not an artist, you do not need to sign up with Soundexchange, because we have agreements with the distributors that if you are an independent label, you're a rights owner, and you get some sort of a distributor like DistroKid or TuneCore or CD Baby to get the music out there, you can actually agree that they'll be able to talk to us and we'll pay them Soundexchange, and you'll get your Soundexchange through your distributor. If you're also a performer, you must register directly with Soundexchange as a performer. So say you're an independent artist, you have your own rights, you're going to be able to collect that through, okay, DistroKid in this example, but your performer rights as an artist, you are going to have to collect directly from Soundexchange. So it depends on what situation we're talking about and what situation you're in. If you're an artist, absolutely yes with Soundexchange, and you can collect your rights directly with us. But if you have a distributor and they can do that for you and talk to us for that portion, you can go ahead and do that. If you're a performer, register directly with us.
And Soundexchange is international. If you're in another country, you can definitely sign up. Is that right?
Well, okay, so we have counterparts in, yes, the major territories, and we have relationships because in the US, we're the only organization that does what we do. You know, you have ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, and now Global Music Rights, publishers and writers, but for the performers and labels, you only have Soundexchange in the US. Well, you have these same sorts of organizations outside of the US that if you feel you're gaining some sort of traction outside the US, that you should talk to us about, you know, submitting an international agreement with us to be able to talk to these societies outside of the US and to make sure that they're paying us whatever you're making outside the US, and you can receive that directly from us. And the advantage there is that they might take their admin fee for whatever they have to process, but we won't do that. So we don't double dip. If you do it the other way around, they would. But we're happy to help you collect your international royalties. And what you need to do is you need to become a member of Soundexchange. So if you just register, that just isn't enough. You have to submit a membership agreement. And then following that, you'll have to submit the international agreement and elect which territories. We have agreements with over 45 territories, 45 societies in the major territories that you might be making money in. And so we're able to talk to them and they pay us and we'll pay you.
Awesome. Ashley, this one's from Frank, how can songwriters who want to pitch publishers that don't accept unsolicited material start getting on those publishers' radars?
That's a great question. I would say, well, if you are going to do a quote unquote cold call or cold email, I would probably err towards the side of an email just because that is the quickest way to put music forward. And so if somebody's able to get to that, email and read it, they'll have all your information. When you do approach somebody, you should be direct and brief, but right to the point. Give them 3 to 5 of your best songs, short bio, contact information. If you are going to take the chance and put yourself out there, you want to make sure that we have the information. And there have definitely been cases in the past where I've gotten to the end of an email, I'm like, where's the music? And it's not there. So make sure if you're going to take the first step forward, you want to do that. But a really good way about building relationships and helping music get into the right hands is starting probably with your PROs. Once you're registered with one of your PROs, whoever you pick, get in touch with their directors there and see who you can start collaborating with on the BMI or ASCAP or CSAC rosters, other writers that are in your town. And through that, different writers are meeting different publishers and getting signed at different times. And when you're collaborating, your music is heard by a lot of other people, from other teams. And then also the PROs really want to see you guys succeed too. So they let us know about great writers as well. And we're very much in touch with them. And so that's usually a great stepping stone to, start and make your first connections. And that usually leads to publishers. But I will say, if you are going to reach out, make sure you send your music in 3 to 5 songs and just make sure we know who you are.
We have another question about sync royalties. Where are those payments being issued from? Is that directly from the publishing company or is that from BMI and ASCAP or the PROs?
Oh, was that to me? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, yes. Sync royalties. And I think you did say earlier you weren't on the royalty side, so maybe you don't know the answer to this. Maybe Matthew or someone can.
I can answer that. Yeah. Soundexchange does not. We have nothing to do with sync licensing or royalties, but yeah, you'd get that through the publisher. Because remember, ASCAP and BMI would issue the public performance license for for example, television, and that's very different than the sync license that's also necessary on the publisher side to actually use that content. And I just saw another question come in. So Soundexchange, you have to realize it is a public performance royalty, but it's a public performance royalty for the sound recording, not the underlying composition. It's very, very different.
Thank you. We have another question about YouTube and the strategies and what the best practice is. So Mark, you may be able to answer this one. The question is, do you max out the tags on YouTube? Is that the best practice?
Yeah, I would say so. It's not like you don't get punished for doing that, you know what I'm saying? So I would just max them out, use relevant artists, try to use trends and stuff. Like for some of our bigger artists, they get really like a Marshmello or a J-Lo. It's really scientific where it's like territories and trending and real SEO. But I think, you know, yeah, max it out. I mean, I would just about trying to maximize every opportunity and get associated with anything. Like, you know, I've had videos that the right tag has driven, you know, dozens of millions of views just because it was next to the right other rapper and it had a big feature, so it just flowed really well, and we got crazy traffic from this one association. So yeah, you don't get punished for that at all.
Awesome. And then this is a question to everybody, whoever wants to jump in. Well, it's two questions. One is like, once artists are generating revenue, how can they keep it? But also, specifically, Eric here is asking, can anyone recommend one website for a new DIY artist that can provide a essential step-by-step process to protect their release and earn optimal income from it? Or maybe some kind of checklist.
I can probably jump quickly on that one and give you my perspective. Any of the digital distributors right now, because they help us quite a lot to those artists in how to move forward, provide a very good set of step-by-step into what should you do. Probably one of the best ones that I've seen have been CD Baby, and someone was including there in the chat or mentioning about CD Baby. They do take care definitely of artists pretty well, and I've seen them on the information that they provide on the website with a pretty good solid model on a step-by-step into what you should do. So probably I would recommend CD Baby to start with. And briefly into what you just asked before about YouTube, probably one thing that I would commend is as a hashtag. I've seen, Mark, you can comment on that hashtag stay at home right now is pretty good to be picked up as well by the YouTube algorithm. So when you release your video and your content with that simple hashtag, probably the YouTube algorithm will also focus more on that.
No, just to comment on that, it even goes to what I was talking about with J-Lo and Marshmello, where it's like it's not just your name and the song name. You have to think about trends like Oscar saying, what's getting searched. Like people are searching things that stay at home, that's getting promoted. Like, it's a comment. Yeah, exactly. You have to think about like what's trending, what are people actually looking up on YouTube. 100%, that's a good point.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. We just have a quick minute to kind of sort of conclude. Thank you all for joining us. This has been really awesome. Super excited to have everybody here, especially providing all the expertise and knowledge from every side of it, from distribution to publishing to live streaming to YouTube to all of that stuff. It's been so beneficial and helpful for everybody here. So thank you all for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and sign off because I don't see any other specific questions here, except folks are saying, all right, thank you, Oscar, thank you. Somebody said Pink Floyd forever, so we got a lot of great comments. But thank you all to the attendees. If you're down to make some more revenue, drop in a $sign in our chat bar there. I know I am, so we're getting some great feedback. But thank you all. We'll go ahead and sign off. Appreciate everybody here, and goodbye.
Thank you, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye.